So today I'm planting a willow dome. Now these cuttings are ones that we took about a week or two ago, and you can see I let them soaking in water and they're just starting to put on little nodules on the base, so they haven't actually got roots on. I'm just going to be shoving these straight into the berm. If we'd waited until these grew roots, and we can do that, then we need a spade to go in so we don't rip the roots off as soon as they get pushed into the ground. This is absolutely perfect. Now this berm was from a foundation pit that I had to dig for a different building, which is just off here to my left. So while I was at it, you know, every time you dig a hole in the ground, you get a free berm. So I've laid it out in this sort of almost like a half figure of eight. So there's a large berm running all the way around to here, and there's a smaller little offshoot on the side here. So I'm going to plant these up, and when they get to a decent height, we'll weave them in just above head height. This isn't going to be a huge dome, it's going to be relatively low, because just to my left here is the cook shelter for customers. Now, because this will be in the view between the customers in the cook shelter and the nice loch view, I don't want to just block that all in, so this will be kept relatively low. This is a red willow, so it's a good osier willow for basketry and things like that. It's a really nice material. So I mean, literally planting this up is as simple as, there's the berm, and I'll shove that in. And a good depth, so I'm going to go in a good foot. I could actually, let's put it deeper, there we go. I've run experiments with these previously, and certainly with ones where I've got like 2 foot plus of stick into the ground, they tend to grow, generate a lot more aggressively. It's a very big volia here this year. There's a lot of guards gone onto a lot of trees that we wouldn't have to normally worried about. Voles really concern me because we're 10,000 trees in and a load of cuttings on top of that. And voles will just take a lot out if they're in high enough numbers. Obviously, you know, that's worst case scenario for us. But this being on top of a berm, and because this is still relatively clear, there's a certain amount starting to come through. It's been seeded, so there's like a pollinator mix, but it's not going to do a great deal this year. We're in the end of September now, so we haven't got much growth left this season. Next year it'll really come up. By then the willow should have you know, become well established and starting to put on height, so there won't be cover for the voles. They're very high, they're very exposed. We've got the building nearby, so we get a lot of predators, like, you know, we get owls and kestrels and so on around. But the owls in particular will sit on the roof, because we had a lot of owl pellets on the ground around it. They'll sit on the roof and they'll swoop hunt from there. So this is about as good as it gets in terms of predator protection. I could put a few posts around if I needed, but I don't think I'll need it. So basically I'm going to follow that example and just keep pushing these in. And some of them are really healthy cuttings. I mean, you can see they're starting to put shoots out. So I'm going to put them fairly close together, maybe a foot, maybe a bit less. And I'm going to put them in really good and deep. So you can see that's gone in, you know, a good 18 inches. So I'm going to continue with that all the way around. We'll come back and show it at the end. Come in and have a little look at this. I'm about a third the way around, and you can see that already we've got rodent holes in here. Now in winter this gets very, very waterlogged, the entire site. So this berm is actually going to give us a huge, the idea being that the wind is coming from this direction today, so once this is established it will give us a decent amount of protection, but mostly the wind comes from south and the southwest. So this dome, when you're sitting inside it, it'll be really sheltered. But the rodents also like a bit of shelter, so anytime that we've got anything like this that's above grade, because it's freely draining soil in winter, rodents tend to move in. I'm not overly concerned about it. Now, I got a whole video on our rodent defences coming up at some point, but really we don't want to eradicate any rodents on site. We want to keep a decent breeding population of them here, because that's how you end up with a good breeding population of predators. And we've got a really nice balance at the minute, including a couple of feral cats that hang around and they do their bit as well. So we've got a really high bird population, doesn't seem to be affecting them, but it really does make a huge difference. Now, the reason that we want rodent holes is because all sorts of wildlife use them. So weasels, which of course are really a huge amount of the predator pressure that we've got for the rodents on site, and we see the weasel a lot in winter when the grass is down, but it's here year round. That will tend to go into disused holes of animals that it's just eaten, and it'll use them as its habitat. But also a lot of solitary bees will go into holes like that and overwinter. You know, they're really useful, especially when you've got a decent predator population. because you get a lot of rodents that then get eaten, and then of course they've got empty holes left behind which other animals can move into. So really useful as part of a functioning ecosystem. It's easy to say we don't want rodents, they're really bad. No, we want rodents because we need them to be killed and eaten by predators. It's a part of a functioning ecosystem. So I thought that was quite interesting, because this was only dug within the last couple of months and already they started to move in. There will be others as well, but anyway, that's yeah, I'm going to keep planting. So you can see how closely they're planted, maybe 6 inches maximum, some of them closer than that. I've still got most of this tub left. See, what happens with these is you put them in, you cut them, all the leaves that are on them have died, but they start putting out new shoots very, very quickly. So it looks catastrophic. It's a bit early in the year for cutting willow, but I got them from another project, so I put them in water, they've survived, and we've planted them in this. So this we got a lot of willow structures on site, but this is one of the more interesting ones, because, as I say, it pretty much is directly to block the wind. We'll have a fire pit out here, so that if you're sitting in there nice and cozy with a nice willow dome over you, you'll have a huge amount of reflected heat from the fire even bouncing back behind you. It's back a little ways. This is a clay lined fire pit, so it won't set fire to the ground. And really this close to the cook shelter is so that customers, if they want, can come up here, they can cook, they can have a nice fire, and they can also sit out of the wind. There'll be more structures off in that direction eventually, but yeah, every time that we dig a hole, we end up with a free earthwork. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like in a few years.